Disclaimer. This video is not to get sympathy. It's just to share a really important part of my life with people who are unable to be there to witness it. And it's to clarify to everyone what happened to me when I dropped off the map on February 3rd, 2012. Today will be my last video blog, and it'll also serve as my first, well, kind of for the first 3 weeks of video blogs, because for those 3 weeks I was unable to talk and I was too paralyzed to communicate and make videos. So here goes. Today's 207 of my illness, Guillain Barre Syndrome. It all started around February 3rd. I was studying for exams. I had been really sick that week, throwing up a lot with flu-like symptoms, and I noticed I was getting weaker and weaker. One day I woke up and my hands were really weak and I was having trouble getting to the bathroom. So I was actually crawling to the bathroom to throw up, or just throwing up in a bucket by my bed. So I figured I should probably call my family, so I used what strength I had left in my fingers to dial my parents' numbers, and I called my dad, and he came and picked me up and took me to the Victoria Hospital in Winnipeg. I spent about 5 hours there in the waiting room, well, not in the waiting room, throwing up in the bathroom with the lights off, and I wasn't helped, so we decided it'd be better just to go home and I'd throw up there and we'd wait it out, thinking it was probably just the flu. That next morning at about 4 in the morning, I was too weak to get to the bathroom, so my dad picked me up and he put me in the van and took me to the Victoria Hospital again, actually, and that time I was treated with IV, and they said I had the flu and sent me home. So I went home to my parents' house after that, and I stayed there. I think it was only a day, and the next morning it was to the point where my mom, my dad, and my sister would have to pick me up and literally put me on the toilet just to pee. And one time they put me on the toilet to pee, and after I peed, because I had pride, I tried to stand up and make my way back to the bed, but when I tried to stand up I just collapsed and hit my head on the towel bar, and that's kind of when we realized that this was pretty serious. So we called 911 and we got the ambulance to come, and they put me on a stretcher. Little did I know I would be on that stretcher or stretchers for weeks to come, but they hauled me to the hospital in Portage-la Prairie, where Dr. Parker looked at me and said it was likely that I had transverse myelitis or Guillain Barre Syndrome. Both of those are illnesses that are too severe for them to deal with at that hospital, so they sent me to the Health Science Center in Winnipeg. In Winnipeg I received a spinal tap to see exactly what was going on, and they told me that it was Guillain Barre Syndrome, and that if it worsened I would become paralyzed and lose feeling in my body, and that all did happen. My organs stopped working, so my stomach stopped absorbing food. I actually lost 20 pounds over the next 25 days because of that, and my lungs stopped working too, so they had to put me on life support. They put me on life support and sent me to the intensive care unit, where I was also set up with tubes up my nose, where they would feed me through my nose. I had a PICC line through my arm directly to my heart. I had constant IVs, and I had obviously the hose down my throat and hose in my penis and in my butt for getting rid of my waste, I guess. I got so paralyzed that I had no way of communicating. I couldn't talk because I couldn't move my jaw, and I had a hose down my throat even if I could move my jaw. I couldn't nod or do a thumbs up or anything, so that was pretty frustrating. I was put on an anti-anxiety medication, and that medication, along with the starvation or a combination of the two, caused me to hallucinate, and I was very disoriented for, well, what my mom thinks was about 3 days and 3 nights. It's hard to say because I couldn't tell what was day and what was night at that time. I was so confused. So I had no way, since I couldn't communicate, I had no way of asking for them to change my medication. My best friend Gavin Barrett, he actually came up with a way to help me communicate that was inspired by the TV show Breaking Bad, where there's a Mexican drug lord who is paralyzed, and he uses a Ouija board and a bell to communicate. So he has a little bell under his finger. I guess all he can move is his finger. So whoever wants to talk to him runs their finger along the letters of the Ouija board, and when they hit a letter that he wants to highlight, he rings his bell, and he can spell things by identifying numbers that way, or letters that way. So we did that, and obviously I couldn't even move my finger enough to ring a bell. So at that point, all the movement that I had was my eyelids. I couldn't close my eyes completely. I could get them half shut so I could half blink, and that was how I would identify letters. One problem that created was, since I couldn't blink and my eyes were open 24/7, they had to put gel on my eyes so I couldn't see the letterboard, so I couldn't communicate. So someone asked them to stop putting the gel on my eyes, and my dad would regularly close my eyelids for me just to stop my eyes from drying out. It was hard to keep my mind busy. Without being able to use your body, it's crucial that you keep thinking. Eventually I ran out of things to think about, so I would try counting the black dots on the ceiling tiles in the Health Science Center, and that would actually help, keep your mind off things while the last thing you want to think about is how shitty it is. So counting kind of keeps your mind off that. Same reason they count bricks in jails, right? So I'd count the black dots on the ceiling tiles, and every 3 hours I had to be rolled from my back to my side to prevent bed sores. So I actually never counted all the black dots, because every time I got close to it, they'd roll me onto my side, and I'd have to start all over again 6 hours later when I was allowed on my back again. Eventually I came up with the idea to try to remember everything from my entire life, which probably sounds pretty ridiculous, and I'm not saying I did it by any means, but I went through my memories and tried to think of as many events as I could from when I was born till the day that I was at, and I did that. And obviously, yeah, I didn't remember everything, but it took me a few days to go through all the memories that I could come up with, and it was a pretty life-changing experience, because it made me realize how fortunate I've been my whole life. And that was the first time I was happy in the hospital, was when I realized that, if anyone was gonna go through that, it's kind of sweet that it was me, because I've already had a really good go at life. It also, realizing that, even though I was in a really shitty situation, I found something to be thankful for, and it was something to be excited to return, that I was excited to return to, right? Just a good life. I spent many nights with my dad, who was always happy to talk to me with the letterboard that Gavin had come up with, and we planned to go on a camping trip together when I could walk again. It's been 207 days, and I've gone from being paralyzed to sitting up to being a vegetable in a vegetable wheelchair that I couldn't push, to being in a wheelchair that I could push, to being in a walker that could go under my elbows, to walking with the parallel bars, to a regular walker, to 2 canes, to 1 cane, and, today was 3 portages across 2 lakes and camping in the White Shell with my dad. I've had the fastest recovery that Health Science Center has ever seen, which is amazing, and I'm very thankful for. And I'm back to being everything I was, and more. There's my dad.
Hey dude,
What's up, man?
let's go fishing.
Okay. JB out.